Okay, here on number 1, we've got an order for the diphenhydramine oral solution, 15 milligrams by mouth every HS. HS I always think about as hours of sleep so that it relates it back to me to bedtime. So we're given that 15 milligrams by mouth every night at bedtime. Okay. Now our label that we are given is this Children's Complete Allergy Medicine, and you can see it has the diphenhydramine in it, and that it's an antihistamine, but it doesn't tell us anything about that unit dose concentration. Usually they'll list that on the front of the label, okay, so that it's big and bold and easy to see, but they didn't do that here. So you could go digging over here on the side, and you'll find that it tells you that in each 5 milliliters, you've got diphenhydramine 12.5 milligrams. Okay, so if it's not listed on the front, look to the side. You'll usually find it over there somewhere. Okay, well, before we actually get into our milliliter per dose, how many milliliters are you going to give? Let's think about an estimation here. Estimations come in handy because they help you just make sure that you're given the dose that you should be giving. Okay, it helps give you a ballpark figure so that you're not just way out in blue yonder over there. So we've got to give 15 milligrams, right? And we can see from our label here that each 5 milliliter has 12.5 milligram. 12.5 milligram is not enough. We need to give the 15 milligram. So we need a little bit more than that 12 and a half milligram, which means we need a little bit more than 5 milliliters. Okay, we're going to hand our patient a little bit more than 5 milliliters. Now, that could be a good estimation. Just say more than 5 milliliters or a little more than 5 milliliters. But if you wanted to put a cap on it as well, you could think about doubling it. Okay, to double something means that you're just going to multiply by 2. It makes for some easy math, so it's a good estimation to have. So if we double our numbers here on the label, if we double the 12.5 milligram, that gives us 25 milligrams, which is obviously way too much. But if you're doubling that 12.5 milligram, then you're going to need to double the 5 milliliters and get 10 milliliters. So in 10 milliliters, you can have 25 milligrams of this diphenhydramine. And of course, like we said, 25 milligrams is too much for our 15 milligrams. But that does give us a cap. So now we could say between 5 milliliter and 10 milliliter would be a good estimation as well. I would also accept something less than 10 milliliters. Okay, so with the estimation, there's no one set answer. Okay, it's just there for your benefit to make sure that you're thinking through what's a good dose. Okay, so looking at our math, we've got to figure out how many milliliters that we're going to give. So we need to figure out a milliliter per dose. Later in this chapter, we're going to be looking at math that involves something per day versus something per dose. Okay, so really get used to writing in for your desired answer, whether we're figuring this out per day or per dose. In our case here, it is per dose. I mean, anytime it's asking you how many milliliters are you going to give, how many tablets are you going to give, that's always figured per dose. Like you're fixing to walk into the patient's room and hand them their medicine. That's figured per dose, okay, not per day. Okay, so milliliter per dose, we said our first fraction needs to have milliliters at the top, right? And that's going to come from your label, almost always. So our label tells us that 5 milliliters has 12.5 milligrams. Okay, so let's stack that in there. Because we have milliliters here, that means our first fraction needs to have milliliters at the top. Now that puts milligrams at the bottom, which means our next fraction needs to have milligrams at the top. Okay, that way our units can cancel out. Now typically, we said first fraction comes from your label, second one will typically come from the order, as long as the units match. Sometimes they'll try to be tricky and give you the label in milligrams and the order in grams, which means you need to do that conversion, but there's 1,000 milligrams is 1 gram. But ours match, so let's just pull down that 15 milligram, and we're going to write it over the word dose now. We had been doing stuff over the number 1, but now we can start putting some more math and nursing terms in. So 15 milligrams is what we have been ordered to give per dose. Okay, so let's check our units here, make sure we got everything we need. The milligrams are going to cancel. So we have milliliter on top, dose on bottom, and that was our desired answer. So we're pretty sure we got the right setup. So let's multiply the tops. 5 times 15 is 75. 12 and a half is the only thing on bottom, so we'll just bring it down. And 75 divided by 12.5 is 6. All right, so that is 6 milliliters per dose. Is it a good answer? Well, remember our estimation, we said that the 5 mil wasn't enough to get us to that 15 milligram, right? We said somewhere between 5 and 10 milliliters would be a good answer. And our 6 milliliters does fit into that. So yeah, we're pretty confident that we have the right dose there. Now, some of your questions are going to ask you, how would you give this medication? How would you hand your patient 6 milliliters? Remember, this is a liquid. So you could use an oral syringe, you could use a medicine cup. Usually those medicine cups will run up to 30 milliliters, and they'll have little calibration markings, little tick marks along the way around every 5 milliliters. So, you know, we can pour the medicine into that medicine cup up to the 5 milliliter mark, but they don't want you to eyeball 6 milliliters. Okay, there's not a little tick mark for it. They don't want you to just pour a smidgen more. Okay, they do want it to be exact. So they recommend that you pour it to the 5 milliliter mark and then use a syringe to grab 1 extra milliliter to add to that medicine cup. Okay, now you only want to hand your patient 1 set of medicine. Okay, so you're not going to hand them the medicine cup and the syringe. You're just going to put that 1 milliliter from the syringe into the medicine cup so that you have an exact 6. And then you hand the patient the 6 milliliters in that medicine cup.